y'all, never mind me.
Hey everybody, I was thinking about one of the best informal lessons that I've learned recently, and what that lesson was about a couple different things. It was about faith, and it was about sickness and being well, and about kind of things along that spectrum. Excuse me. So what it was that I learned it from, uh, I want to say Pastor Tony. I don't know if he's a bishop or not. If he is a bishop, I'm not trying to disrespect him, but Pastor Tony Evans. And the lesson was not anything that he's taught in any one of the books that he's written, although I have read some of the books that he's written. Great stuff in there. Very, very, very informed and very intelligent theologian. But what I learned was during the cancer fight that his wife had, before she unfortunately passed. And of course, as a person of faith, you pray for healing, and you pray for deliverance and all of that. And of course, as a person who's been a minister for many, many years, I just assumed that he would be praying for that as well. And he was, along with her family, and of course, their friends and the parishioners and people worldwide. The thing that kind of got me was that when she began to get really sick and she was in the hospital and she was in discomfort from this is all from what was said, and his prayer was still that God would intervene, except for his prayer at this point was that he began to pray that God would either heal her or let her transition on. And I thought that was very, very, very different from what I would have expected, because I wouldn't have expected a minister to pray a prayer like that. But then it takes a great level of maturity to even come to the point where you realize that you love this person so much that you want that person to be well. And if the wellness has to happen on this side or on that side of life, you just want them to be well. And it's a tough thing to even let go, rather. And I know it was just, for me, it was jarring, because I know that he loved his wife, and I know that that's not what anybody hopes for, but I believe that in all sincerity he prayed for that. And I don't know what the exact time frame was, but I know shortly after, it came out that that was what they had prayed for, that his wife did pass. And I don't think that it was a very, very, I won't say it wasn't sad, because of course they grieved her and of course they missed her. But what spoke to me in that was just the level of maturity that you have to have in regard to this life, because we do understand that this this life is not forever. And it's a tough thing to even think about, especially for someone that you cared about and someone that you love so deeply. So for him to have come to that decision, it was I don't even want to say profound to me. It was one of those things that are like kind of difficult. Like if someone put, a giant rock in the middle of your living room, how would you adjust to that? How would you, how would you, like, you understand it's a rock. So I guess that's not a good analogy. If someone put a giant metal object in the middle of your living room, how would you what would you do? How would you relate to that thing? And I think it's just interesting, because that's how it was for me. In hearing that story, it was that kind of thought process was foreign to me. And I'm always interested in people who are famous, or not even famous, I'd say renowned for intellectual things or spiritual things, or great people in general, people who have done great things. I'm always intrigued by and impressed by and interested in, not so much how they got to the point of, being successful or wealthy. I'm interested in their thought process because I believe that even if you gave, the wealthy or successful person, a different tool, they still would have come out successful. So I'm always interested in their thought process, how they think, how do they formulate their thoughts? Like if I gave you a certain situation, how would you approach that situation? Because I know that it would be vastly different than most people would approach it. And that process of thought is what I'm always interested in because it's ever so intriguing to me. I I just wonder how people come up with the trains of thought that they have. Where do they come from? Where does that stem from? What are you building upon? What did you learn, or what experiences have brought you to the position that your mind automatically geared you toward building in this fashion? So, in regard to Tony Evans, when he made the statement and the prayer regarding his wife, I didn't understand it because I know that, or maybe it's for me, I do understand it. Maybe I know that I would be more emotionally drawn, and maybe he was early on, and maybe she was early on, but maybe they had a connection where they could talk about it and they understood what would be best for everybody involved, to not have her in pain or to not have her in so much great distress or discomfort. I think about that. I think about that because that's a huge decision. That's life changing for everyone involved, because to make that to make that decision means that you have to have prepared yourself for either outcome. And either outcome is definitely going to change your life. It's going to change your, not just your life in terms of how you feel, but your life in terms of your physical life, what you will do, how your tomorrow will look. It will vastly change what will happen tomorrow. The physical things that you interacted with from a day before will no longer be the same from this point forward until the day that you transition. And it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing to think on that level. But I'm impressed. Is impressed the right? I don't know if I'm intrigued again, because I don't know that I would have come up with that train of thought given those same circumstances. I don't know. I don't know. Who's to say? I don't know. I know that being, raised as a Christian, we're taught to pray and to believe and to have faith and all of those things. And I believe that Dr. Tony Evans does have all those things, does and did, as well as his wife had all those things. So it's tough to, what do you do when you have to face the probability of either outcome? And it's not a new concept, because if you read the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even before they were placed into the fiery furnace, they said that even if God doesn't save us, we know that He's able to save us. So that's another level. That's a greater level of faith. And even if you consider the story of Abraham and Isaac, and you consider that many theologians say, and the scriptures attest to it, that even before going up to the altar, or the place where Abraham made the altar, that he knew that he was coming back with Isaac. He knew that he wasn't going to kill his son. He wasn't going to sacrifice his son. And I think that that's interesting, because Abraham told his servants to wait right there and we'll be back. Me and the boy will be back down. So to me it makes me wonder, where do you get that train of thought? Where does that line of thinking come from? How do we attain it? How do we get to it? How do we strive for it? Should we strive for it? Where do we find it? And it's tough. How do you wrap your mind around such an abstract thought as this level of faith? Not just genuine faith, just to say I believe, but to say I believe in the midst of trouble, in the middle of the storm, in the middle of a trying time, very much in the presence of a physically trying time. To have faith that still says, not only do I believe, but I'm acting upon that belief, even though there stands a chance for one outcome or the other outcome. That's active faith. That's in the presence faith. That's very real and very alive and very transformative faith, because whatever happens after this point will transform you. yet you still have faith. The closest thing I can even relate to that would be when I was still living at home. I think I had to be maybe 19, 20 years old. I was coming home late from a girl's house, and I saw some guys about a block away from where I had to turn to walk down my block because I caught the bus home. So about a block away, I could see the guys, about four or five guys maybe, young guys just like me. Like I said, I was 19 or 20, and I had my Nautica jacket on that I bought from working at I was working at McDonald's at the time. I think I had some Air Maxes at the time, and I had a watch that I had just bought, and I had my class ring, and I had bought a Seattle Mariners hat because that's when everybody was rocking the Mariners hat for Ken Griffey Jr. and stuff. So I had all the stuff that I liked, all my gear and all that I paid like probably close to 2 months worth of McDonald's checks or more to get that stuff. And when I saw those guys from afar off, I said, yeah, I could go around the block and just avoid them completely. But I thought, nah, man, black guys, man, we always get a bad rap. We get a bad reputation for being thugs and being troublemakers and da 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 and this and that and third. So I said, I'm gonna go ahead and walk down through there. Now, at that point, I was aware of the danger. I was very much aware of it. I can't say that I was scared, but I was very much aware. So I said, I'll keep walking. So I kept walking. And of course, as I was walking, I saw the guys kind of look in my direction and confer with each other, kind of pause and confer with each other. And I'm like, okay, well, doesn't necessarily mean anything. No need to be, whatever. So as I got close to the block where I was going to turn onto, as I got close to the block where I needed to turn to go to my house, there was an alley right before. So I get to the alley, and there's a guy standing before the alley, and the other four or five, or 3 or 4 guys are standing on the other side of the alley. So as I passed the first guy, he puts a gun to my side and he says something along the lines of you know what it is, or you know what time it is, or something like that. So I let him lead me to the alley or whatever. I wasn't tripping on it or nothing. But the strange thing is, right before I began to walk past the first guy in front of the alley, I remember thinking, I didn't say it out loud, but I thought in my head, okay, God, here we go. And that was it. Like, it was just that. I didn't really, in that moment, I wasn't thinking about impending danger. I wasn't thinking about getting hurt. I wasn't thinking about the possibility of not coming home, getting beat up. I wasn't thinking about any of those things. All I thought about was, okay, God, here we go. And it was just, whatever will happen, God, it's I'm with you. So whether it's good or bad, I'm with you. And that's just that. And I went to the alley, and the guy had a gun to my side or whatever. And we got to the alley, and he said something, but I didn't hear him, so I didn't respond. And then I guess he got mad, so he cocked the gun and he put it like in my face or like to the side of my head or whatever. He's like, I said, give me your stuff or whatever. So it wasn't a problem. And I remember thinking, like, as I was taking off like I said, my class ring, my watch, my shoes and all that stuff, I was taking it off, and the dude took my jacket and was trying it on and all that. It was real crazy. But I remember thinking, so this is a robbery. Okay, that's what a robbery is about. This is what's happening in the robbery. Like, it was real crazy. I was just like, I've never been in a robbery, so this is what it looks like. Bam. Okay, they take your stuff. So I wasn't tripping on it. So after they had all my stuff, and it was it was wet out there, but I don't think it was like super rainy. So I'm standing in the alley with just, my clothes on and my socks in the rain. They had all my stuff or whatever. And like I said, dude trying on my stuff, they got my ring and watch and stuff. And the other guy, one of the guys who didn't have the gun, and he was actually one of the smaller guys in the group, he's like, man, hold on, man. All that's material stuff, man. That's stupid. Get dude back his stuff, man. All that's material, man. Give that all back. Give it back. And I was tripping because he wasn't the one with the gun. So I'm like, I appreciate the sentiment, homie, but like your boy got the gun. That's kind of the guy who's in charge. I don't know if I don't know how robberies work, but I kind of tend to think that if there's a hierarchy of the robbery, the dude with the gun is probably in charge. But thank God that wasn't the case. So the guy said that, and as soon as he said it, they started handing me back my stuff. The guy took the jacket off and handed me back my jacket, gave me back my shoes, gave me back my watch, and I didn't see the ring, but I wasn't tripping on it. I had my shoes in my hand, and the dude with the gun dude, like after they gave the stuff, they handed me my stuff and they started to walk away. And the last person to walk away was the guy with the gun. And he was like, "Don't tell nobody." And I'm like, "I won't." Cause I was thinking in my head, like, what would I tell him? Like, you didn't, nothing, like, what would I say? So I remember, and this was like, the crazy part was where they were robbing me, where I was in the alley, was literally right, I'd say maybe 40 feet from the back of my house. So my bedroom was in the back of my house. So I was 40 feet, 50 feet maybe from my literal bedroom window. So I'm like, man, this is crazy. So they left and walked off one way. I walked off the other way, walked home and walked in the house, and my mother saw me with my shoes, and she was like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Yeah, they, like I forget how I framed it. I don't think I said I got robbed because technically I didn't get robbed, but I did get robbed, but it didn't, like a robbery did take place, but I didn't lose my things. So it was a weird technicality. So my mother, she was all worried for me, and I remember like when I can like I had to pee before I got home, like when I got off the bus. So I went in there and I used the bathroom. And I wasn't tripping on it because, like I said, I was 19, so I was maybe a year out of, or 2 years out of, so I almost been 18, out of a year out of high school. So I didn't see the class ring. I had everything back there. I took my shoes and put them. I put my coat on my desk or whatever, and I shot my shoes on the ground, like just dropped them on the ground in my bedroom. And like I said, the ring wasn't there. And like I said, I shot my shoes down, but I wasn't tripping on it because I'm like, I still had insurance for the class ring, so I could just go, file a claim or whatever. So I wasn't tripping on it. So what I ended up doing was I got home. Well, I called my girlfriend that night and let her know what happened and everything, and she was worried and whatever. But I told her like, cause she was supposed to come by the next day, so I'm like, well, we'll file a claim or whatever, so it's not a big deal. So I pretty much just went to. Well, my mom came in there, she was worried, and she prayed for me and stuff, and prayed, and but like I said, I wasn't during that whole ordeal. I wasn't scared. I can't say that I was scared at all. The only thing was I was just aware before when I was walking down the street after I got off the bus and saw him. So I went to sleep, no problem, and the next morning, I said, well, let me go ahead and file this claim while I'm thinking about it. And when I got out of bed, I looked to my shoes, and at the back of my shoe, I think it was my right shoe where my heel was my class ring sitting right there, right where my heel would be, in my right shoe. And like I told you, I got the shoe from the guy in the alley, and the ring wasn't there. And like I told you, I walked with the shoes in my hand, the ring wasn't there. And when I shot my shoes on the ground, like I told you, the ring wasn't there because all that time it would have rattled. It's impossible for me to have shot my shoe on the ground and the ring not be there. And then when I wake up, it's at the heel of my shoe where I can see it standing up, not at the toe. Because if it was at the toe, then I would be like, well, maybe I just missed it and it just went there when I sat them down. But no, it was at the heel of my shoe. And I remember that, and I'm like, whoa. So I got robbed and got literally everything back, absolutely everything back. And the person that gave it back gave the order to give it back wasn't a guy that had the gun. So very, very interesting story. And I told my girlfriend, and I told my mom at the time, and it was just amazing to me. But like, again, that's the closest thing that I could even have to that amount of faith in the middle of the circumstance in action. And I'm extremely thankful to God because that's who I attribute it to. You may hear the story and attribute it to something else, I don't know. But for me, having it been my story, I attribute all of that to God because, again, at that moment, all I was thinking was, God, here we go. It's me and you. Whatever you got for me, God, I'm here. Whatever you want. If I go and they beat me up, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about, just at that moment, here we go, God. It's just me and you, period. So the world didn't really, whatever happened after that moment didn't really matter. I just knew that it was me and God on this thing. And that's kind of how I approached it. So maybe in that there's a glimpse of what Pastor Tony Evans had and what Abraham had and what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had. Maybe it's all in that as well. But I can attribute it to different levels of faith. And I pray that, not that I want that circumstance to happen, but I pray that if life and when life does put you in positions where you have to exercise active and living and in the moment faith, that I pray that for myself that I'm able to do that fearlessly and trusting God 100%. And I pray that for you, the very same thing. If it's not God for you, I pray that you trust in whatever brings you peace and whatever brings you power. For me, I tend to call that God. So for me, that's what I pray that I find myself in that position, that I pray that again, I take the stance that God is just me and you, and that's just what it is. So those are my thoughts today, and I'm still profoundly impacted by things like that. So I thank God for each and every one of you who give me a chance to listen, who give me a chance to talk rather while you listen, and who tune into the podcast. So that's all I got for today, guys. Take it easy.